This is Stories of Impact, the art and science of human flourishing. In every episode, we travel the world to explore intersections of science and spirituality. I'm your host, writer Tavia Gilbert, and along with journalist Richard Sergey, every first and third Tuesday, we look through a new lens at old traditions, hear from new generations as they dream up innovative solutions, and learn new ways to make sense of modern life. In the societies in which most of us live, our capitalist economic systems run on transactions, on individual sales of goods and services. But are you aware that there are other infrastructures of support and help that meet our need for information, connection, even love? We live with gift economies that already enrich our lives. We start our story with professional disruptor, clinical psychologist and entrepreneur Dr. Glen Moriarty, who is turning assumptions upside down about the systems in which we connect, heal, and thrive in the modern digital age. Here's Dr. Moriarty.
Wikipedia is a gift economy. It's a cognitive surplus. So when humans aren't fighting with each other or watching Netflix, they can create amazing things. There's a surplus of writers and editors, and they will write and create a free encyclopedia. There's another service called Be My Eyes, which is a surplus of vision. So if a person who's blind can't see something, they can press a button on the phone and then hold up the camera, and a person with vision will help them see where they are. Or AA. AA is a surplus of people in sobriety. Community gardens, organ donation, blood donation. The internet, which runs on Linux, which is open source, which is free software, even AI, there's a lot of open source or free AI models. And we just don't have good visibility. So these gift economies are baked into our lives and our society, and not in minor ways like the internet. And these gift economies are connecting us heart to heart, cities, countries, and just don't have good visibility, but they're providing huge value and meaning to people.
Dr. Moriarty can speak from authority about the meaning and value of those heart-to-heart connections. Since 2013, he has run one of the most innovative, free global mental health systems on the planet, a community called 7 Cups, where over 570,000 trained volunteer listeners provide emotional support to users in 189 countries in 140 languages. How does 7 Cups work?
Instead of a capitalist market where you give things based on currency, like I'm going to purchase X from you, instead it generates and grows on generosity and compassion. So the way 7 Cups runs, because it's a volunteer organization, is it runs on generosity and compassion. And gratitude is basically fuel for generosity and compassion. And the parallel is the equivalent of interest rates. So a market economy, you drop interest rates down, you turn on the money faucet, the economy grows. And so in a gift economy, you express gratitude to people, and that's the equivalent of dropping the interest rate and allowing the economy to grow.
Why didn't Dr. Moriarty found a mental health support service based on a market economy model?
The way I think about the market economy is it works. It's the cleanest dirty shirt, right? But there are a lot of things that it just doesn't work all that well for, like poverty, like climate change, in my judgment, mental health. The amount of pain and suffering in the world is enormous. And so in those places where people are suffering, non-market solutions are going to likely be more important. And so we have to find ways to engineer those things in ways that organically make sense in those environments. And so we really need to create alternative or parallel gift economies. So they're not just these kind of cool things that we stumble upon every now and then, but they're a core part of our neighborhoods.
Dr. Moriarty's perspective might sound radical in an era where the prevailing paradigm is to monetize absolutely anything possible. But really, it's not such a crazy idea, according to Dr. Sarah Schnitker. Dr. Schnitker is a professor of psychology and neuroscience, the principal investigator of the Science of Virtues Lab, and the director of the Baylor Research and Growth in Human Thriving Science Center at Baylor University in Waco, Texas. She says that we might already be enjoying gift economies in our day-to-day lives, in our own homes and neighborhoods. Maybe this sounds similar to the way you live.
My family, we try to actually cultivate relationships with our neighbors in a giant neighborhood. You go ask your neighbor for a cup of sugar. And when I do that, I don't want to bring back a cup of sugar the next day. So instead of having it be tit for tat, of I must always repay immediately and directly, this sense that I'm part of something I receive from some people, I give to others, and I trust that in the end, it's fair and it will work out. And then I want to pay it forward. And I don't need to be tracking who's given and received and who owes me and who doesn't. That, I think, is what I want to feel with my neighbors in my actual neighborhood. That is such a more exciting environment to be in as a human being because it's built on trust rather than on transaction.
Dr. Schnitker has had a lifelong interest in character virtues, so she thinks a lot about things like trust, fairness, and generosity, especially in the digital age.
A lot of my research has looked at not just how we can cultivate character in the laboratory, but how it can be grown and cultivated out in the real world. And so some of the things I've done over the years involve technology. And a lot of the conversation is about how virtues are undermined by technology and technological innovation, but really interested in seeing how our technology can actually facilitate that process of virtue development.
Just like the happy neighborhood that she lives in and in which she cultivates mutually beneficial relationships, Dr. Schnitker believes that gift economies like Dr. Moriarty's 7 Cups community could have enormous potential for facilitating virtue development.
Oh, this could be revolutionary. This is what human beings need, is more of this kind of economy. That's what really builds virtue. That's what really powers well-being and human flourishing, this social interaction and social infrastructure, in contrast to a more transactional one, which is how many of our social relationships have been pushed in the last century. And I think especially in the last decade, as attention becomes such a commodity to buy and sell.
Like Dr. Moriarty, Dr. Schnitker is interested in disrupting assumptions about the way things work and studying what else is possible. She says that her own area of specialty, psychology, is centered around a common misunderstanding about the nature of life, including our own species. She says,
we have been optimizing for human flourishing, I think in psychology, the wrong way, because we've only been measuring individual flourishing and have been focused on individual happiness, individual life satisfaction. When you only look at individuals and not the relationships among them, and even relationships with the natural world, if you just look at trees and not the forest, you actually undermine the flourishing of those trees. And I think the same is true of how we've been trying to work towards human flourishing. We've not thought about the ecology, the natural environment, other people, that this isn't one person, it's a whole community.
Dr. Moriarty says that 7 Cups gift economy centers a skill that each of us has access to: listening. And that matters because being heard is a key element in healing.
So 65% of what makes therapy work is something called the therapeutic alliance, which basically means, hey, I really care for you. You know I care for you, and I'm listening to you. And so a listener can achieve high levels of therapeutic alliance, and it can bring healing to people. But anybody can. Coaches, mentors, clergy people, spouses, family, friends, neighbors. We all have this kind of superpower of listening that can bring true healing to one another. It's a very simple practice. Once people learn how to do it, it's relatively easy to do, and it can have a big impact.
7 Cups trains volunteers to use their listening superpowers to support anyone needing a helping hand navigating life's difficulties.
There's 4 parts of the platform. So the first part is just connecting with a volunteer trained listener. So this is somebody who's going to be empathic, paraphrase, summarize, help you feel heard and understood. There's growth paths or treatment plans, which are just bite-sized exercises to help people make progress across things like social anxiety or depression. There's communities or forums, and then there's clinicians on the platform as well.
Volunteer listeners must first pass an initial course. And then they can engage in the 7 Cups Continuing Education program, which provides 70 additional self-paced training courses. The entire system runs on anonymous exchanges of written messages, though he initially launched the 7 Cups service through audio contact between user and volunteer.
So a person would call a number, we'd ring all of the listeners at the same time, and whoever picked up would be connected. And then we did messaging. And 99.5% of the people preferred messaging than audio. Because if you're in a vulnerable state and you make an ask of a person, even like a lovely volunteer, you're still aware that you're making another ask on another human. And the prosody or the emotionality, it makes you feel vulnerable. Whereas with anonymous messaging, there's none of those kind of elements. And so way more people get help and engage with messaging. It's really basic. A person just comes on and you can connect with a listener in 2 ways. One, you can make a general request. And so you identify your issues, and then that goes into a queue. And whatever the listeners are on now, they'll pick that queue based on their matched lived experience or their interest area. Or you can search for listeners by a number of filters, and then you just build a relationship. So it's very much like talking to a good friend. Somebody's just going to say, hey, what's going on? What's on your mind? And then the person just gradually begins to open up because, a core part of therapy is all of these issues want to be expressed. They're bothering you. It's like an open loop in your mind. And so as soon as you can share it with somebody and they care for you, and just in the process, naturally, you're putting words on feelings that are bothering you. And then when you feel heard and understood, you get to close that loop. And then it doesn't bother you anymore.
When he launched the 7 Cups test model, he didn't realize that it would naturally lend itself to a gift economy model. He initially assumed that listeners would want to be compensated for their service.
And then they were like, no, we don't want to be tipped. We don't want to charge. We don't want money involved in this thing. And I was like, okay, I think that's beautiful. I don't know how I'm going to fund it, but I think it's beautiful. And so they taught me this is sacred work. We don't want it to be transactional.
Dr. Moriarty describes the 12-year-old sacred community of service that grew up around 7 Cups, like a father would.
With your kids, you're always trying to minimize the weaknesses and double down on the strengths and just love the kid as much as you can. And the kid early on, it can't regulate. There's all kinds of challenges. But then as it gets older, it gets more mature, it gets smarter, its brain comes online more. And that's the same with a community. A community is like an organism in that sense. I was originally thinking of an ecosystem because I could see all the ways the gift economy worked, which was basically like everybody gives and gets something. We give the listeners free training and professional development. That's what they get. They give emotional support to our members, our people seeking help. Our people seeking help get free emotional support, and they give anonymous and aggregate data to researchers. Our researchers get the data, and they give the research. And so that runs in a gift economy, like a triangle. You can imagine it in 3 parts, largely without money. And then we sell and get philanthropic dollars and other elements to keep the general platform in a good place and growing and all those things.
The success of the 7 Cups model was part of what drew Dr. Schnitker to immerse herself in the model's science. She wanted to learn what the community relationships in 7 Cups had to teach about healing and human flourishing. And Dr. Moriarty wanted to better understand the value of and the proof behind his innovative gift economy model. So these 2 experts teamed up to dive deep into 7 Cups data.
Something that so intrigued me when I heard about 7 Cups was the fact that they have more than 500,000 listeners willing to listen without getting paid, and learning how people came in often first as being a user who has someone listen to them and experiences that gift of free listening without compensation, which is a little different than traditional therapy where it's transactional. And so as a scientist, that really intrigued me, that this had scaled up to such a level, and wanting to understand how gratitude was coming into play and how being listened to and really heard and really valued without someone getting paid for that makes you want to repay it and to join and actually get trained as a listener.
They also wanted to explore how gratitude can power a community to build the flourishing of not only the individual, but of the collective, And they wondered what they could learn about how to best practice gratitude. After studying 7 Cups over the last few years, Dr. Schnitker says,
what 7 Cups shows us and what a lot of faith traditions show us, the flourishing needs to be held at the relational level, not the individual actor.
That's why sacred relational virtues, like 7 Cups' economy of gratitude and generosity, are so important to understand.
Part of what we've done with our scientific research is text analysis of the platform and how much gratitude is expressed and what's happening in sessions where people are listened to that makes them want to move forward and become a listener. But also an opportunity that we saw was just these growth paths, the training that would happen, and how can we bring gratitude more explicitly into training? How can we juice it up, what they're already doing? And gratitude is already so at work on this platform. And one of the things we were curious about is, what if we do training manuals and helping people to make their gratitude really socially embedded versus what psychology has prescribed in pop culture of like, oh, just make your list of what you're thankful for, focusing on the gifts versus helping people to actually think about who has benefited me, not just what I've received, but that there's an actual person there and they are benefiting me.
Like listening, gratitude and generosity are superpowers.
Gratitude and generosity are what makes the social world go round. They are the glue that holds people together. It binds you to them. And then it reminds you when you start to forget that there are people who love and care for me in this world. It's easy to start to feel lonely, to start thinking that no one cares, that I don't have anyone. But when you have these moments of gratitude, and if you think about gratitude, how it feels, it's this warmth, it's this sense of, oh, I am loved and valued. And, oh, there's other people I want to go out and love and value. It just has this amazing function of helping you get connected in a way that's way stronger than a transactional relationship.
Dr. Schnitker adds a surprising perspective.
So, for example, we know from very recent studies that some of the traditional ways of practicing gratitude, of just listing the things I'm grateful for, even though it might make you feel more gratitude and happier, might actually undermine your empathy, your feeling of indebtedness to a community that makes you want to pay it forward. There needs to be tweaks in the way we practice gratitude in order to ensure that it actually benefits a group and not just the individual at the expense of the group. And so part of what we were doing was taking those cutting edge findings around gratitude practice and converting them over to 7 Cups and ensuring that the whole group benefited and not just individual well-being.
The study on generosity and gratitude in the 7 Cups community also explored users' relationship with artificial intelligence and the impact of AI on those virtues. Dr. Moriarty says that while AI tools are integral to the platform, AI bots are not users' preferred means of communication.
We have a chatbot on the platform too that provides emotional support, and she's great. She gets a 36 out of 40 on the session rating scales, which is a measure of therapeutic alliance. People still prefer to talk to humans, and that to me was really good. I was so glad to see that people were like, I will have a conversation with this bot. It will help me. I'll give it a good review. I'll feel heard and understood. I'll have some insight into my issues, but I really want to talk to another human. Because it matters to people still that there is another human that is caring for me. Somebody can be in India, another person can be in Canada, and they're caring for each other. And they're just exchanging care and compassion. But it's like my heart touches that person's heart, and they know it, and they know they matter. And I think that's really curative. As long as bots are known as bots, right? And we're super clear on this. Like, this is a human, this is a bot. That what we were talking about earlier, where that, hey, you care for me, you're a human and you care for me, that is really preferable to people right now.
So why does Dr. Schnitker think some users still voluntarily engage with the bot rather than choosing a human listener?
I don't know for sure because our data is so preliminary, but I wonder if there is a little bit of safety in the bot. It's a nice entryway. And maybe if you're a newer user, the bot feels a little less threatening and the bot definitely won't judge me. So I think it might be kind of a nice gateway for some folks who are newer. The bot is really good at being empathic, probably better than your average human. So that bot can make you feel really empathized with. And I know studies have come out in the last 6 months showing that people, when they don't know, if they aren't told if this is a bot or a human, will say, "Oh, I like the bot," because they're just so good about doing that. But I think what is important, though, is that maybe humans need a little bit more challenge. When you're talking to a human, even if it's about you and you're getting listened to, this is a listener, you still do have to engage in what we call theory of mind, that there is another person on the other end. And how might they be thinking about this? They've been trained to really think about me, just like a good therapist, but there is still a human there. And their feelings do matter as well, even though that's not the central focus of this conversation.
That exchange and recognition of each other's humanity is key to what has built Seven Cups into something greater than the sum of its parts.
People, especially on Seven Cups, are seeking genuine connections and real community. That was something that really stuck out to me as I learned more and more about this community. It's a real community. This is not just an amalgamation of people who are users. They actually have a sense of belonging to this community and a sense of responsibility to the community. And as researchers, we quickly realized we are responsible. We can't just do research. Not that we ever want to do unethical things, but like we really need to think about how this will impact the community because we are part of something that's bigger than ourselves.
In order to better understand the potential impact of AI on the Seven Cups community, the researchers experimented with an intervention that offered journal prompts designed to get users thinking about the people they're grateful for.
And then we also trained an AI chatbot that they would engage with, who was trained to elicit this kind of social gratitude. We found the AI chatbot interface versus the static social journaling prompt were pretty similar on most things. So elicited similar levels of gratitude, similar levels of indebtedness to other people, with one exception. People who did this kind of intervention with the AI chatbot had lower empathy than people who just engaged this kind of journaling exercise that helped them to think about others. This is really important as we think about the ways AI is integrated, or do we actually want even people to talk to an AI chatbot, which is becoming very common in our culture. And you'll see stories regularly of, oh, the AI chatbot is even better at empathizing with me and me perceiving that they're empathic. But that might come at a cost. And our data shows that engaging that AI decreases my empathy for others compared to engaging just with a personal reflection about others who have benefited me. We actually went into it thinking, oh, you know what? This AI might be able to enhance your gratitude and make it more potent. It can tailor to you, and that might help you help others better. We did not go in looking for the downsides of AI. We were actually going in thinking like, ooh, this can make it an Uber intervention and even more personalized, and this will have all these benefits. So this effect that interacting with an AI may depress your empathy. So that surprised me, and it's definitely given me pause.
To what does Dr. Schnitker attribute that decrease in empathy? She says the data is new and hasn't yet been replicated, but
when you're actually interacting with another human, or even just doing your own self-reflection, you are still engaged in a social context. That was one of the most interesting things about Seven Cups is that there's an actual person over there listening to you, and you aren't supposed to care about their needs, but they are another human being. It really matters that you're talking to a person. Whereas I think when people are talking to a chatbot, one, that chatbot is orienting itself to the user, and it's all about me and my responses. And just knowing that I'm talking to an AI, I don't actually have to care that there's another person on the other end, because there's not. And I think that affects how we approach then other people in the world. There's a lot of arguments in philosophy on what is the ethical thing to do when you are a human engaging with a chatbot. Should you still use please and thank you? Should you still use kind of these social norms? Because if you don't, might you unlearn how to do that with actual humans? Or those please and thank yous come at a cost to the data usage, the energy usage, and is it actually unethical to do that? So I think there are just a lot of concerns. What we don't want to happen is have people actually decrease their empathy for the other humans in the world in a time where we need empathy more than ever as we have deep divides.
So where does the work go from here? Dr. Moriarty says that 7 Cups can serve as a model for a hybrid of online and offline connection and care.
The online connection to the offline is super important. I think we need these gift economies in our local communities so people that are online can get connected to a local therapist or a faith organization or a shelter or a food pantry. And so we can begin to have a reciprocal online-offline connection where we really grow gift economies in a more deliberate way.
And Dr. Schnitker? She thinks that 7 Cups is a disruptive model that shows the importance of interventions with scalable, real-world impact. She wants other educators to recognize how crucial it is to embrace new models, new partnerships, new modalities, and new potential.
As academics, as we are trying to show why we need to exist, why we need science, what it can do to actually alleviate suffering in the world, to actually build solutions, helping my colleagues to have a bit more of an imagination about how we can do our research, where we can do it, with whom, and to just make introductions and set up some models of how we can get out of the laboratory and into organizations like 7 Cups that are working for the greater good, and that we can partner with and do excellent science and at the same time see real lives immediately impacted on the ground is where I need to be exerting my efforts. Academic institutions are traditional institutions. They're the exact opposite of entrepreneurs. They're slow, they have processes for governance in place, but I think we're going to have to move a little bit faster and change and pivot more quickly as academics in the US, and just helping people get excited about opportunities instead of bogged down in all the ways things are going wrong. Helping to bring that to these big problems and understanding who humans are and how we can promote flourishing is just, we're going to have to try new things. And I think that's my personal mission right now, is push the envelope in academia.
We hope you'll come back in 2 weeks for another new episode. In the meantime, please share the Stories of Impact podcast with someone you think would love it. And we'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch at storiesofimpact.org. This has been the Stories of Impact podcast with an interview by Richard Sergey. Written and produced by Tavia Gilbert for Talkbox Productions. Music by Alexander Filipiak. Mix and master by Jared Garcia. Executive producer, Michelle Cobb. The Stories of Impact podcast is generously supported by Templeton World Charity Foundation.